Golden Goal coming at you right before Thanksgiving break. He's Martino Puccio from the Atletic, covers football betting and State of the Play pod co-host. I'm Matias Weilmann here from OddsChecker. Martino, a couple of 5 a.m. wake-ups under our belt. I think you clocked in at 3 cups of coffee yesterday. I'm on number 4 right now, so that should tell you how I'm feeling. What number are we looking at right now?
We're just still at 2. I've been keeping it to that, but I'm feeling the headache from lack of caffeine and just staring at a screen all day. We're like 12 hours in, right? It goes by so fast. And I don't know how I'm gonna handle tomorrow with Thanksgiving and then all that other stuff. It's pretty insane.
Yeah, you got again, obviously with the World Cup usually not being around this time, we got NFL going right now too, and just NBA too. It just everything is just a mess. But let's start with what we can control, and that's what we saw on the pitch today. We had the 5 a.m. wake up with Morocco and Croatia. You thought this was going to be a low-scoring game. It could not have been any more low-scoring. It was 0-0.
Yeah.
This is a game that had a lot of action, but if you caught parts of it, you wouldn't think it. Any big takeaways from here? Because I think this is kind of what we expected.
No, literally, it's unbelievable. This one I had perfectly capped, and I didn't take my own bet, so I didn't win anything off of this. So that's just how that went.
Love that.
Yeah, I mean, listen, Morocco showed up. This was end to end stuff, everything you want. And this is the funny part because of a lot of Americans or just North Americans in general. They're like, "How do you know it's a great game if it's 0-0, no one scores?" That game is the perfect example of that. It's back to back, end to end stuff. We see great players on the pitch at the same time. And sometimes it just doesn't go in the back of the net. And that's why it's one of the hardest sports in the world, because it is the hardest sport to score in. But yeah, I don't think we learned anything different here. The group is just going to be incredibly close. And yeah, I think that's pretty much it. I'm not really shocked by this result. Draws are going to stand like that. And we're really just moving on into the next stuff because I still think this group is just wide open. Very similar to what we saw yesterday with Argentina and Saudi Arabia in that group, in Group C. So I think we're going to be seeing more of that. But again, low scoring type of stuff, not great finishers once again. And I think it's going to really be just a tournament wide thing because we saw that later on today.
Yeah, kind of define the group, like you mentioned. And we'll get to Belgium and Canada a little later. I ended up going with Croatia. With Croatia, draw no bet. So I at least went out with no bet, but we obviously like to take a win here. Next game was the most unexpected result. I don't even know if you can call that the match of the day because we just had really good football all day, and that is Germany and Japan. Japan coming from behind to win 2-1. Look, you got 2.5 over, correct? I went a little safer and went 1.5 over. This was actually literally the opposite of what I thought. I thought Germany was going to be the last team to score and they were going to come back, and it ends up being Japan. And we talked about this. This is a trendy pick, and things look a little interesting for the Germans now.
Yeah, I mean, listen, this is kind of what we were saying in the preview episode as well for the entire tournament. What does Germany lack? A goal scorer. And what do they lack today? A goal scorer. That was basically what it went down to. Jamal Musiala had an amazing chance, by the way. I took him later on as an anytime goal scorer. He did everything difficult except the finish that he skied. It was a real frustrating one. And again, this is a trend now with Germany. They have not performed well in these past couple of tournaments, regardless if it was a managerial change. And how about Japan? Talk about the resolve after how they were eliminated last World Cup against Belgium, where they blew that lead. They kept the course in this one. And again, we see sides go down 1-0 and they're not giving up. They're coming back in second halves, scoring on time. And again, the second goal and the game-winning goal, seeing Manuel Neuer being beaten near post on that. I mean, there's plenty of people to blame, but just the overall resolve of Japan in this one was thoroughly impressive. And now we look at Germany facing Spain on the second match day, where we could see the Germans be eliminated again, back-to-back group stages. Just truly unbelievable. I think what we learned today is that Germany shouldn't have been considered a favorite to win this tournament. And again, anything can happen, but this is why I was off on them, because they don't have that type of goal scorer. Did they have everything else that could show up and win this tournament? Sure. But that right there was just so indicative. If you can't hold a 1-0 lead, if you can't add to that lead, then I don't expect them to go deep into this tournament and win it. And today's the prime example.
Well, I think I had picked Germany to lead the group in scoring. If you heard that, no, you didn't. You're a liar. That's obviously not going to happen because of the Spain result. Let me read you some numbers here to see if you're interested, because as bad as it looked just overall because of Spain's result as well, Germany, Spain in no order to qualify out of the group is at plus 200, and Germany's at plus 1900 to win the group. Just real quick, is that even worth looking at? Because that's good odds.
You see that's the difficult thing, because now we're like, say even Germany beat Spain, right? We're just going through like all these hypotheticals. They just won 7-0. So like they have to make up this differential. And if Germany is beating Spain, how large is that margin? I like, after the finishing that we saw, is it even going to be significant? Yeah, it's even then, say it's 2, that does nothing. That doesn't do a thing to it, right? And then Spain goes and faces Japan on the final match day, and we'll see what would have happened there. They would need to lose the next 2, and Japan gets a result, and I think Japan's going to take care of business against Costa Rica, because we'll get into whatever that was. But again, I think it's worth a look. It's not absolutely outlandish, but do I think it's likely? No, because again, that goal differential, that overall performance. How does Germany respond now? Because when they had a poor result in 2018, we thought, okay, well, they're battle tested. It's that German mentality that we see at the club level with some of their teams like Bayern, and how they lose Champions League finals, come back and win. But with this, it's different. It's a different type of group, and I'm really interested to see how they bounce back. But listen, anything can happen, but plus 1900 is not the worst thing to throw a couple of dollars on, but I won't be doing that.
And, just to stay in the group as a second, as we get to Spain and Costa Rica, I think the main thing that we learned here is that if you made the finals in 2014 in the World Cup, things haven't looked good to the first match day for both Argentina and Germany. Look, Spain just throttled Costa Rica 7-0. You had taken them to win, 1-0, 2-0, or 3-0. Apparently, you didn't have enough confidence. Spain looked really good. My opinion is this is more an indictment on Costa Rica than it is on Spain, who did look fantastic. If you had taken a clean sheet, congratulations. Me personally, of course, I took them -6, so I cashed in big. I'm kidding, obviously. You agree? Is this more about Costa Rica than Spain at this point?
I think it was a little mix of both. I think it was a great job by like benching Alvaro Morata, who's their best forward or goal scorer, striker, pure striker, and to put that many goals up. Ferran Torres as well. I mean, just going up 3-0. There's so many different types of players that are capable of scoring, and this is why I like Spain a lot. But just I wasn't fully convinced that they could do this type of. Again, they did it in the group stage. They were scoring goals at one point, but it's what can they do against the better defensive sides? Costa Rica, you take care of business, you win goals to 0, whatever it was. I mean, that bet would have hit if it was just strictly the first half. It was 3-0. I was like, okay, what are the odds now in the 45 minutes that they're going to be able to do that? Unfortunately, it was difficult. But again, I'm okay with losing stuff like that. I'm not supposed to predict 7-0 is going to happen, right? That's not supposed to happen. That shouldn't happen at this level. So if you had over something like that, kudos to you. But at least you know now that you can bet against Costa Rica, and you can go for, some of those bigger plays like, hey, are they going to lose by 3-0 or 4-1 or something like that? Those types of score lines are going to have a lot of plus money odds on that you could easily bet on. But again, that's really up to you to figure out those combinations. But I think it's better to know that we were right. Costa Rica is quite horrendous, and Spain was able to take advantage of that. So now we're going to have to see what happens with Japan. Is Japan capable of doing something like that? Because that's what I'm curious about. I do think Costa Rica is toast. They're finished. But again, I think this was more about them being that poor, because I thought they were even worse than Qatar or even Iran as well.
And speaking of taking advantage, make sure you're taking advantage of our November giveaway for $500. All you have to do is subscribe to our YouTube page at OddsChecker US. If you subscribe, you're automatically entered. And then if you comment on any recent video, that could be this one that you're watching right now, you get an extra entry to win, again, $500. All you have to do is comment on what's the top of your wish list. Again, $500 could be in your pocket, and it's no sweat off your back. Let's get to the final game. 2 p.m. just went final a little bit ago. It was Belgium 1, Canada 0. Canada was the better team, at least for the first 45 minutes, probably for the entire match. My main takeaways from here: Belgium didn't look sharp, which is not the first time we've said that before. And Canada certainly has promise, but it's going to take a little more experience probably for things to get put together.
This was annoying. This like every bet should have been in the bag. We're talking about penalties not called, penalties taken, penalties missed. We're talking about counterattacks with one of the greatest playmakers of all time, missing a guy wide open on the right side of the pitch. That never happens. Like, imagine LeBron James missing Shaq underneath the basket for a layup. That just doesn't happen. LeBron has the best
vision. Instead, like throwing an alley-oop to like a 45-year-old Udonis Haslam. Haslam was so confused.
No, exactly. Or even like Antoine Jameson when he was on the Cavs at one point. It was so frustrating because we had the over 2.5. It wasn't a big ask. We're talking about stuff that should have been layups. Layups we're talking about here with penalties and tap-ins. That didn't happen. Both teams to score, same thing. Belgium should have had at least 2 goals. Canada should have had at least 3 or 4 goals as well. It just didn't happen. But again, if we keep analyzing things and things are going the way that they're supposed to and the ball doesn't go at the back of the net, hey, you know what? That's gambling. This is what happens. That's why the best people are not even at 60% over the course of the year in terms of winning percentage. So that's what happens. Unfortunately, that's the way the sport goes. But I think I would be encouraged if I am a Canadian backer, which I was, to make it out of the group. I don't see anything to me from that match that says Canada can't get the job done, especially what we saw at 5 a.m. too, by the way.
Yeah.
So again, really tough loss for them. I think they would have at least deserved a draw. Unfortunately, it didn't go for them. But I do think this helps the Belgium and Canada 1-2 scenario that we see going down as well. We know they have the tiebreaker over them, so that could obviously very well happen. But again, even Belgium, like, are you even convinced that they're going to be winning this group outright and they'll have an easy time? I don't think so, because it's not like Morocco and Croatia were terrible. It was just a lack of finishing. So if everybody wants to lack finishing in this, then the group's up for grabs, in my opinion.
Yeah, at least we're all on the same page here. I agree. I mean, this was the definition of frustrating. I had ended up taking over 1.5. I had Kevin De Bruyne to register a point, which would have been nice, and then both teams to score. So it was one of those where it should have happened. It's almost like, someone looked at your bet and said, okay, let's just punish this guy. But let's get into tomorrow's, because hopefully we can turn things around. Again, we're hitting these right on the head, and some of them are just kind of falling through. We're going to start with Cameroon and Switzerland. That is the 5 a.m. game. Cameroon is one of the weaker sides in all of the tournament. I think they're the 4th lowest ranked team in the FIFA rankings, which you did tell us mean absolutely nothing, but I just decided to throw that out. Interestingly enough, the first time that these two countries are playing, only the second time that Switzerland is playing an AFCON team. Switzerland is the favorite here. I think they have a little too much talent here. You're looking at Shaqiri maybe to get on the scorecard?
This, like we say with Memo Ochoa stepping up in the World Cup, Shaqiri, like almost every single time this guy plays in an international tournament, this guy steps up. He's not even a poor club football player either. He's played at Bayern, he's played at Liverpool, Inter Milan. He's at some of the biggest clubs in the world, but he's not a consistent performer at this level. But whenever he steps on the pitch for Switzerland, he always makes an impact. That's the main reason why I'm looking at him, because again, we have to trust our gut. We said we love Ochoa. Like, if there was a bet out there to say Ochoa to make an X amount of saves or Ochoa to save a penalty on the off chance, look what happened. He's stepping up. A lot of the players that usually step up or don't step up for their country, it's kind of been happening, right? Like, we see Messi not have the greatest performance. We see Kevin De Bruyne look like a shell of himself from Manchester City today. And I think that's going to be a consistent thing. It's very risky when you're taking some of these sides to or players to be an anytime goal scorer. It's coming in at plus money. But again, I would be remiss not to bring up that Shaqiri steps up often. And this is one of the weaker teams in the group in Cameroon, who again could still very easily get a result. I don't think it's that far-fetched either. But for me, if I were to look at something with plus money, it's like that. And then, by the way, Noah Okafor, what a fantastic talent he is for RB Salzburg, who they were playing in the Champions League. And if you don't know, that's the same club that Erling Haaland was playing at. Just for some reference for some people to know the level of talent that this kid is at, he can easily make an impact as well. And I know you have a couple of players that you had in mind. But I do think Switzerland should win this game. I'm just not fully convinced to bet on that.
Yeah, I think, I mean, we talked about, Cameroon's poor form. It's not like Switzerland hasn't exactly been lighting it up recently either. I think they dropped a decision to Ghana as well recently, who we'll talk about in a little bit. But I just think between what Mbolo and Xhaka can do with just
Mhm.
controlling this game is why I would feel good about Switzerland. If you want to take them, -1, -1.5 even, that could work. That's probably one that if I'm actually going to decide on the result of the game, it's just going to end up being a Switzerland money line
Hmm.
type deal. But you mentioned it. I mean, Shaqiri, if there's an international match or a tournament, he is going to put his stamp on it. It's just one of those names that people just remember tournament to tournament. Moving on now to the second game, it's Uruguay and South Korea. Uruguay has been a really interesting pick in the group with everything going on with Portugal. And we'll talk a little bit about Cristiano Ronaldo a little later. Again, you can find his next team odds
Hmm.
on OddsChecker. We just published that article because things are not going well for Man United, but we're talking about the international stage now. Uruguay has a lot of goal scorers. South Korea has a lot of talent there too. You're looking at a couple of different guys to score. Just goal totals in general.
Yeah, I think over 2.5, the numbers that were popping
Mhm.
up for that for me, I really thought that it was solid. There are good defenders in this game. Do not get me wrong. That has nothing to do with it. But there's so many dynamic players like Fede Valverde, like Cavani can come on and make an impact. Luis Suarez, there's Darwin Nunes as well. Like so many guys that have the opportunity, and that's just on the Uruguay side of things, right? We're not even talking about Son, who is one of the more prominent players in the world who plays for Spurs. I love Kim and Jae, who's a center back for Napoli. He's also a center back at Korea as well. I think he's fantastic. We also have fantastic center backs playing for Uruguay. This is going to be a fantastic type of game. I do think Uruguay is going to pull out with this, but over 2.5 is something I just like with this. I love the odds that have been being put out on that total. It's not again like we're talking about just 2-1 is the scoreline, right?
Mhm.
Sometimes people just think of like 3 goals in general. But if you just think, okay, what is going to happen with Uruguay and South Korea? Do you possibly see a 2-1 scoreline going in either direction? And if the answer is yes, then
Yes,
why
I
aren't
do.
you going? Exactly, right? It's not far fetched. Then if you're getting plus money for over 2.5, why aren't you taking a look at that?
Mhm.
Because I know that people are maybe getting scared off. There's been 0-0s, there's been low scoring games. Yeah, of course. But you have to take a look at the talent level with some of the stuff. And it's not like we're seeing the most incredible midfield in this game. I think that's maybe one of the weaker parts for both sides, even though there are talented players. But for me, I think this is going to be open. There's plenty of players that are capable of creating and finishing with plus money for just 3 goals. Like
Mhm.
I'll take it. I'll take that. That's fine. If they're hooking me in, like you know what? So what? I don't care about that kind of stuff where it's like, oh, it's a trap. It's a trap. I don't care. I don't bet based on traps or what people think might happen. There's so many damn different things that we could go through betting,
Mhm.
right? That we could say this will happen, this won't happen, but it takes one game. That's it. There's so many possible outcomes. You got to go with your gut, and for me, my gut says that.
Yeah, I really like looking at both teams to score here. You mentioned it. There's
Yeah.
just way too much talent to not see at least 2 goals come in, and I think both teams kind of break through. If that makes you feel a little uneasy, you can go for over 1.5. Of course, you're not going to get that much juice on it at that point. I really like Darwin Nunez to score at some point here. His form has been fantastic coming in. We saw in his last Liverpool match, he scored a
Mm.
couple of times, I believe. I think it was before halftime that he scored. He has been really rising up the ranks from our odds checker data. He is a top 10 goal scorer in terms of how much he's being bet on to lead the whole tournament in scoring. So I think he probably gets off on the right boot here. No pun intended. Actually, no, pun intended there. But I think there's just too much firepower offensively for both these teams to not see a couple of goals go in, especially on a rebound after today. Not exactly the most goal scoring outside of that Spain Costa Rica matchup. Our third game to watch here is Ghana and Portugal. And speaking of goal scoring, Cristiano Ronaldo has entered the chat. There's been a lot of chatter off the field about where he's going to end up next. A certain interview that Man United didn't exactly enjoy seeing him on or even know that he was going to be on. But all jokes aside, Ronaldo to score here is a popular bet. And I see you're backing it, and there's good reason for
I mean, it's the highest goal scorer of all time for
it.
plus money, and We're talking about a team that has plenty of creators on it. We're talking about a team in Ghana that isn't incredible. And Cristiano Ronaldo he's playing like I don't view him as the greatest player of all time. He's not someone I favor. I'm not a fan of his like that. But it's Ronaldo. I hate Tom Brady, but if you're telling me I could get Tom Brady plus money in the Super Bowl, okay, I'm taking Tom Brady. I'm taking Cristiano Ronaldo to score here. He still takes penalties for them. So if we talk about Rafael Leao and his shiftiness, what if a Ghana player tackles him in the box? We've seen a lot of penalties be called so far. They changed up some of the rules. We saw how soft it was in the Argentina match. Who's to say this won't happen in this one? Or especially with Portugal, they're conducive to scoring a lot of penalties. We saw it in the Euros. We saw it when they won the Euros in 2016. They're still capable of that. And again, Cristiano Ronaldo to score any time is plus money. Like, okay, again, like I was just saying, if it's bait, it's bait. So what? Put me on the hook.
Take the bait.
Pull me up out of the water. Like, I don't care. Like, it's Cristiano Ronaldo. I don't know how many times I have to repeat myself. I'm going to take something like that. And again, if you wanted a parlay with them winning, because they do have the talent to do that, you could get that at plus 210. But again, if you just take it straight, Cristiano Ronaldo plus 120 is on DraftKings. It's a little bit lower on FanDuel, but you're still almost at even money there. For a player like that, I think that's something you have to look at. And again, if you're feeling even more confident, you think it's a low scoring type of thing, why not take him as the first goal scorer? That's always an option as well. But for me, I think Cristiano Ronaldo is stepping up in this tournament. I think he's going to step up in this match, and I think he's going to score. So that's where I'm at about that.
Yeah, I mean, it's, call me, the small fry in Wii Fishing. If you remember that reference, just get on the hook and just pull me out. You can obviously see it on the grid there. Cristiano Ronaldo, like you mentioned, on DraftKings is at plus 120. So make sure you're not leaving some juice on the table there when you go shopping, like Jeff Feinberg likes to say on the drive. When you go shopping, make sure you get the best value, because you mentioned that get them only at plus 105 on FanDuel. So make sure you go over to DraftKings there. You see on the grid on your screen also the best odds for just a straight up Portugal victory is at minus 245. I want to put you a little bit on the spot here because, at OddsChecker, we obviously have the article out already with the best betting data on where he's going to end up next. Do you have any initial reaction
Chelsea?
You think so?
Chelsea. Well, what does Cristiano Ronaldo still want to do? He still wants to play in the Champions League. Okay, we check that off the list. Who can afford Cristiano Ronaldo? Yeah, well, who could afford Cristiano Ronaldo? Maybe like 3 teams, right? So teams that were interested in him over the summer. There's PSG, there's Chelsea. Chelsea was the closest. He gets to stay in the Premier League. He gets to keep his family in England where they've been so far. He has a lot of young kids. That checks out. Who is an American sports owner that owns the Los Angeles Dodgers that loves making big splashes? Oh, it's Todd Bowley in Chelsea. Who's wearing blue right now? Me, Chelsea. I don't. That's just a complete coincidence. Obviously, you put me on the spot. I feel like the most likelihood is Chelsea. I think maybe an outside chance is PSG. PSG, it would break the internet. We're talking about they're probably the 4 most popular active footballers at the same time. Like we're talking Karl Malone with Shaq and Kobe, and I believe was Gary Payton on the Lakers at that time as well.
Yeah,
when they lost to the Pistons.
Team, yeah.
Exactly. They're not exactly washed up to that level, but in terms of star power and significance and some of the greatest players of all time, if you're PSG and their owners, it's not just about winning trophies and trying to win the Champions League, which you would help them do at the striker position because they don't have a true number 9. Cristiano Ronaldo, listen, I think it's one of those 2 clubs. And I know some people say MLS, but I know some people that are tuned in Portuguese-wise are saying not just yet for him because he still wants to compete in the Champions League. And at the same time, the only other rumor was Saudi Arabia and Newcastle, neither of which play in the Champions League. So I'm a no on those 2.
I mean, look, if we're going to go by shirt color, I'm wearing white, so I guess LAFC is going to be the next team that he's going to go to, right? No, I don't think so. Like you mentioned, he's staying in the Champions League. I don't think he's still got enough in the tank to not go to a lesser club at that point. So you can get your bet on where Cristiano Ronaldo is going to end up next on OddsChecker. And again, make sure you're reading the best betting data on where he's going to end up. We're going to wrap up here with our last game. Speaking of talented goal scorers, we got Neymar still on deck. 2 p.m. match. It's Neymar's Brazil against Serbia, who's been getting some love here too. But Brazil is the betting favorite coming into this tournament. We both seem pretty confident they're going to put up some goals, and you're going right at Neymar here.
Yeah, again, it's very interesting for these anytime goal scorer props. Again, there's been rumors that Vinny isn't a guarantee to start for Brazil, but I'm not completely buying that. Again, you always have to wait for these lineups, but when this number is out, like it's out, we're talking about a player who is just a couple of goals off of Pele's all-time record for Brazil. We're talking about the best footballing country in the world and a player who is on the precipice of accomplishing something that no one ever
let that comment
has.
slide, by the way.
What happened?
Best footballing country in the world. I'm going to let that one slide.
You would slide? Who's better than Brazil at this point? Come on, hey, listen. Nobody. If we're going off World Cups and Copa Americas, there's nobody better than them. But still, at the same time, we're talking about Neymar and plus 120. It's a very similar situation to Cristiano Ronaldo. He's able to create. He's able to score. He's going to get there so often. And again, if the bookies are saying Brazil is just looking like a layup in this one, then wouldn't Neymar be involved in something like this? And again, Neymar to get a point. I know you love the points best as well. I was having trouble finding that. So I would have put in something like that. If you are able to get something like that, he's more than capable of grabbing an assist as well. I would highly suggest looking at something like that too. So don't just quote me on strictly the goal. But for me, that's something I love. And again, Serbia plus 600 is not a stupid bet, by the way. It's not audacious. I don't think they're going to win, but 600 is a pretty damn big number, especially seeing what we've seen so far.
It's a big number for a talented team. And I mean, it goes to show. I mean, Brazil is, around the mid 200s, in terms of their favorites for points here. That's not a crazy amount. I mean, we've seen a lot of minus 300s, 400s, gone up to 600s for certain squads. And this is, again, the team that is favored to win the tournament coming in. So clearly Vegas at least is putting a little respect on Serbia. But again, plus 600 is a little high for them. I like Brazil to score in both halves of this game. And it could just be one. It could end up being a 2-0 game or a 2-1 game. But I think they're going to end up scoring in both. A couple things here. If you think it's going to be a lower scoring game, you think they'll score at least a couple times, you can have Neymar to register a point. If you think that it's going to be a higher scoring game, you can end up taking Brazil -2, if anything. Because this is a team that can run up the score like any other team in this tournament, maybe unmatched in their ability to do that. And of course, Vinicius Jr. playing is going to be a big factor in that.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I don't think anyone has more offensive depth in this tournament. Maybe England comes up there in terms of just players going deep, like the right wing, left wing options, center forward, striker, basically.
But hey, Spain scored 7 against Costa Rica.
No, exactly. That's exactly what my point was going to be. Is like we've seen teams step up without that. And again, it's funny because a lot of people, this is just an overall point for the sport. Many people are just so used to, in basketball, right, 20 years ago, who's the guy that gets the most points? It's the shooting guard. And then what happened? We end up seeing guys like Steph Curry. Agent Zero with Gilbert Arenas was really the first guy to do it. Now, how many times do we see wingers now turn into prolific goal scorers in soccer? And then on top of it, we see number 10s capable of scoring a ton of goals. Neymar, Messi, and Mbappe obviously on the wings. And now sometimes center forwards like Olivier Giroud and at times Gabriel Jesus for Arsenal. They're more of the distributing types that are capable of finishing. Everybody is so much more versatile in sports now in general, right? Like 7-footers in basketball are able to shoot, they're able to pass, they're able to rebound, they're able to do all the little things. The same applies for football and soccer as well. So when you think that you're married to strictly a striker being the top goal scorer, you look around, you see who's capable of actually finishing and creating, and it's everyone for Brazil. So again, with the depth, who's to say someone comes off the bench and makes an impact? We saw it with England too. So, both halves is definitely something to look at.
Yeah, that was kind of my train of thought. It was just there's too much talent for them not to put up a couple of goals there. Well, that's going to do it for this edition of Golden Goal here on OddsChecker. Again, we're going to take a little bit of a break for Thanksgiving, but if you're looking at that USA game and England at 2 p.m. on Friday and you say, yeah, I want to throw some money around on that, don't worry. We're going to have our episode launching at noon on Friday. We're going to have all your best bets for that. And of course, we're going to have all our clips go up for all of the games on Friday, but we're going to give you a little bit of a break. So no official episode going out, but make sure you're hitting our Minute to Win It playlist. You can find that right on our homepage on our YouTube account. That's going to have all of your best bets for every single game. So make sure you're sticking with us throughout the whole tournament. It has been a fantastic first week. Martino, I will talk to you in a couple hours for US and England. Before I let you go, though, give me your top Thanksgiving food.
Top Thanksgiving, probably stuffing. I know it's very vanilla answer, but stuffing's the best.
That's fine.
I do find cranberry overrated, incredibly overrated.
Okay,
say that.
Interesting. If you want a vanilla answer, for example, I mean, I'm not going to go ahead and call mashed potatoes the best Thanksgiving food, but the combination between gravy, mashed potatoes, and corn to just kind of cut through some of the heavy food.
Yes. I agree with you there.
It's unmatched. Martino, I appreciate it. I will see you in a couple hours for England and US.